reason to go.
Last time on Mysterious Island.
We are glum today, Captain.
Where is the best thing I know for burns? I've seen something similar. It's a bit of a climb.
Don't worry, I'll find it.
Show yourself! Speak to me!
Did you see that thing?
Well, whatever it was, it's not there now.
I saw a light through the storm.
Then you saw him too.
These little fellows won't harm you. This is merely another form of grasshopper.
Today, I looked straight into the eyes of our phantom.
How will we find him?
I think I know where to find our phantom. But it won't be easy. We'll have to plan it carefully. It helps to know he's just a human being, not supernatural, but flesh and blood.
How do you know he's not more?
I looked into his eyes, John. I know what I saw. He was startled. He had a moment of fear at seeing me so close. I'm not mistaken about it.
All right, Harding. What can we do?
It's time to get inside his lair.
Captain, a long time ago we decided to simply accept his presence. What's different now?
Cyrus, it's too dangerous. Even if he is only human, we know he's very powerful. If we anger him, we've nowhere to escape to.
Now, what are you people up to?
I believe confronting him is our only hope of ever leaving this island. I'm certain he has the ability to come and go as he pleases.
What makes you think that?
First things first. I want you all to know what he looks like.
Why? Surely we'll know him if we see him.
I think there's a good chance you may have already seen him. He's a man somewhat taller than myself, perhaps a little older. He has aquiline features, piercing blue eyes. He has a gray, blonde beard. He's balding. But I think that I caught the glimpse of a pigtail tied with a bow behind. He was wearing a long, black cape with a hood. I pleaded with him to stop, but he ran off. When my eyes recovered, I followed him to a solid rock wall, but he had disappeared. I found the outline of a hidden entrance.
I have some remembrance of this person you describe. But I thought it...
That day you disappeared in the woods. You've kept it to yourself, but you must tell us.
I'm not the only one who've kept something to themselves, Harding. You never told us what happened to you under the lake.
When I went into the water for the second time, I was able to turn open a circular metal door, or I was allowed to open it. The pressure of the water flowing into the opening sucked me into a narrow tunnel and then into a strange room that filled up with water. I was able to pull myself back up the tunnel, but the door closed and sliced the rope in two. I lost consciousness and nearly drowned. When I recovered, the water had drained away. I was shown moving pictures of things that have happened to us here.
Cyrus. Cyrus.
Stop.
And a voice told me things about myself, my past, my family.
Your father, Colonel William Harding, was also a soldier in the War of 1812. You were raised on a 3,000-acre estate in Virginia. There your father continued to build on the wealth of the family. A wealth built and maintained on the backs of slaves.
I've never kept who and what my father was a secret.
And the room filled again. I didn't know whether he'd decided to kill me or let me go. I swam back up the tunnel, and thankfully, after a moment, the door opened. He let me go. But I never saw anyone.
He told you things about your past.
Yes. Why?
The same man told me things about my past.
Try to remember.
I thought it was a dream. He told me aboard some kind of craft. There was an iron room and with rivets. There were nautical instruments everywhere. Well, at least I think they were nautical.
Cowardly journalist.
Hiding behind your pencils.
I hide behind my pencil. You behind your guns. Perhaps we both are cowards. He told me things about my past that only I could have known. My father.
Mulberry bushes was white as snow.
His name is important. I have a story here and now. A scoop, in fact. An interview with the infamous Captain Nemo. I can't remember it, but his name, it's important.
This craft was made of iron. So was the chamber I was in. I think you've been where I need to go.
Cyrus, why put yourself at risk?
Because, Joanna, he's been able to get information about us. Information about my past that I never told any of you. He could only have known what to look for after he knew who we were. He must have left the island and come back again. He can come and go as he pleases.
All this time, he's been just leaving and coming back whenever he wants?
Why hasn't he rescued us? Only somebody quite evil would leave us here when he had the power to help us leave. But he's done some terrible things that we know of, beyond his seeming lack of desire to help us.
Joanna, are there things that you haven't told us about your disappearance in the storm? I don't know where you went that night, but I found your things, and yet the next morning you were dry and seemed fine. Where did you go? Where did you find shelter? If it has anything to do with this phantom, you must tell us. Please, Joanna.
This isn't easy for me. I promised myself I would never tell anyone this. The day I left for Ayrton's cabin, the day of the storm, I was quite ill. I walked through the wind and rain, and finally, overcome with pain, I fainted. When I woke up, I was in the temple with the same person, I'm sure, that you and Gideon have described.
Joanna, can you hear me?
Jack, help me, please. A day goes by when I don't remember this. The whole time it was happening, I was delirious and in terrible pain. It wasn't until you both told me what happened to you that I was certain that what happened to me was true. All true. The Phantom was there when I lost Jack's child.
Modification of human behavior, entry number 200. I have been sighted by Captain Harding while trying to fix my personal security system. Since miniaturizing the view mirrors, they have been causing me some minor problems. I am afraid that, as they now know I have been observing them by mechanical means, they will become too cautious, forcing me to abandon my experiment prematurely. Unless I can intervene in some way.
I'm sorry, Joanna.
Captain, How do we know he won't try to kill us if we get too close to his ship or whatever it is?
Well, he spent so much energy trying to keep us alive. I can't imagine that he would decide to do otherwise now.
He may have helped us from time to time, Captain. But he's also the one who tried to bury me alive.
We were never certain that he had anything to do with it.
Well, if he didn't, who did?
There was an explosion and a landslide, but perhaps we tripped some device to cause it.
Landslide!
That anyone should have such a device would rain down so much rock and debris. The whole side of the hill let loose. No matter which way I turned, there seemed no escape. I'm alive, Harding. But thanks to you. Not the Phantom.
What about Neb? How he died? I know we've always said Neb died from a snake bite, but I've been all over the island, and I've never seen even a sign of a single snake.
He's dead, Joanna.
Oh my God.
Couldn't the Phantom have...
There were fang marks on his arm. When I found him on the trail, he was already dead. There was nothing suspicious about it. It was always a wonder to me, Neb, that you bore no bitterness in the face of such injustice. And I never said this to you, but it was really only your good nature that got me through all those awful years of the war. I thank you, Neb. I shall try to be worthy of your example. Goodbye. Forgive me, Neb. If only he'd woken me.
I examined him before we laid him out. It appeared to be a snake bite. The problem I've always had with the snakes is that our goose and duck eggs are never touched, our traps are never disturbed.
If the Phantom killed Neb, then I have all the more reason for finding him. But it doesn't tally with the number of times he's saved us. What about me? He can't have known anything about us while we were still in the balloon, and yet he saved me from drowning. Take care of yourself, Neb. Good luck.
Captain? Captain! No!
When I jumped from the balloon, I'd made my choice. I swam until I had no strength left. Even as I was sinking, held no regrets. None. Elizabeth! Tell our dear ghosts how much I loved them. I knew that I was drowning. And then there was a strange gurgling noise and a light. I remember seeing a green light. When I came to in that cave and heard your voice, and Neb's voice, I was never happier to be alive. The Phantom saved my life.
Mine too. Remember the green light? The same one Father and I saw in the temple cave when we were trapped.
What on earth is that?
It's that thing again. We were close to giving up hope. I could barely breathe. I don't know how the Phantom knew, but somehow he showed us the way out by using the green light. The Phantom was responsible, plain and simple. That time, thankfully so.
What about the other side of him? What about the cruel Phantom? Cutler murdered Jack, and I was sure he would kill me too.
I could easily kill you all.
Kill us all, one by one. What then? You'll be alone. And believe me, that will quickly become unbearable. We have no way off this island, and neither do you. Do you want to be left alone, waiting, as we have done for rescue? I beg you, let her go.
But when he lowered the knife and let me go, there was no doubt in any of our minds that he'd given up completely. But it was at this point that the Phantom chose to cut him down in cold blood.
All I ever wanted was the money.
We don't know what he'll do if we approach him.
I don't claim to understand why he shot Cutler. But from your description, he was quite sympathetic to you in the Temple Cave. And it was he who carried you unconscious from the well after the earthquake. At the time, I thought I was dreaming, seeing things, but now I know that what I saw was real. What happened down there, Joanna?
Well, the earthquake made huge sections of the wall move in and out. I got trapped. I suppose the walls moved apart again and released me.
The green light that appeared in the well was the same green light we'd seen so often before. The same green light that I saw just before I blacked out in the ocean. But when this creature appeared carrying you, I was sure I had gone mad. He set you down gently, and without a sign, returned into the well. There is no question that he was helping, not trying to hurt. Are we all agreed that we must find some way to meet him face to face?
Harding, you may be right that the Phantom has been more helpful than harmful. He's done nothing to help us get off this island. It seems he certainly can come and go. So what purpose does he have for keeping us here?
He is keeping us here for his own reasons. He's been reluctant to make himself known to us. Why should we believe he'd welcome an approach? He's a killer. We know that.
What you say may be true, but if there is any way of getting off this island, I, for one, am willing to take the risk. Whatever it is.
I think the best approach is to see if we can get inside his lair without being seen. Have a look around. See if we can glean anything about this man and his vessel.
That makes good sense to me.
I've been aboard before. Well, at least I think I have. So I should go in while the rest of you distract him somehow.
I'll go with you.
Well, I have the technical knowledge. I may be able to understand his craft. Perhaps even how to operate it.
Good.
All right. We need a plan. We should stick together.
Over there. You see, there's someone running through the bush.
Where?
There! Get the clubs and Herbert's bow and arrow. We're being attacked.
We'll never be able to defend ourselves with these things. Did you get a good look at him?
I'm not sure if I can believe my own eyes.
I saw him. He ran by me not 10 yards from where I was. It was Cutler.
No, it can't be.
Herbert, are you sure? Was he alone?
As far as I could tell, yes. And heavily armed. He had a rifle and a pistol. And who knows what else.
Let's hope he's alone.
We were no match for him last time. And we had Ayrton who knew his tricks, as well as weapons of our own. We must never underestimate him, even if he is alone.
But we saw him die. No one could have survived that fall. Herbert, you must be mistaken.
That man murdered my father. I will never mistake him for another.
Ayrton showed me how his traps worked when we were tracking him. I can see what he's up to.
Whatever Ayrton showed you won't guarantee your safety.
I won't act the hero, I can assure you. All I'm going to do is track him. Find out if he has Confederates. As soon as I can tell what he has in mind, I'll straight back and tell you.
Be careful. Don't try anything on your own. Don't let him see you. Good luck.
They must be mistaken. Cutler's dead. But who is it and how did they get onto my island without me knowing?
he's not back soon, I'll have to go after him.
We'll all go.
There's no sense putting us all at risk.
I prefer it if we all stay together. If that man's out there, I don't want to be left alone.
Please don't. I beg you, Cutler. Please, I beg you. Come on. Don't do this! No! No, Cutler, please! Please!
Something's gone wrong. Come on.
It came from over by the creek.
He's here!
This side is all over me. Please get it off.
Let me get his jacket off. I think it's a chest wound. He's unconscious, but I think it's just a mild concussion.
These spiders are poisonous.
Well, I've had one or two on me before, and they don't seem to bite.
Seem to.
There he goes!
Herbert, don't do anything foolish!
Will it be all right? Can we leave him?
Keep him warm. He'll be all right till we get back.
What about these spiders?
Try not to bother them too much. They seem fairly friendly to me.
Better catch Cutler. I'm not going to kill him, but he'll wish he was dead.
He may try to double back along the cliff trail. I'll go up that way. You join up with Herbert and make your way towards the waterfall.
I thought that was the end.
He's a monster.
I didn't realize it was one of Cutler's traps until I saw the bomb. Then it was too late. He's making better time than we are. We should cut across up here and catch up.
Harebrained scheme, Harding.
That's how far away they should be when they go off.
Well, that's it for me. I'm out.
Considerate of you, Mr. Cutler, to come right to my door.
Joanna! Herbert! Watch out!
Something's not right. I don't know who's more dangerous, us or Cutler.
There he goes! He's after Harding. I hope Cutler doesn't corner Harding on the cliffs. Come on.
as I get the flame inside.
Where are they?
I don't know.
We've lost them.
I hope nothing happens to the captain.
We should go back to Granite House.
It's the only place we can defend ourselves.
Right, let's go.
Look out! I've had enough of this, Cutler!
You could get us both killed. Cyrus, thank goodness you're back.
Captain, we were afraid Cutler might have captured you.
Suicide.
Well, he's still outside. Gideon's there, too.
Wonder how long Cyrus will stay in there.
I wonder how long the Phantom will stay out here.
The most difficult and troublesome of all my experiments on the castaways is my inability to destroy the bonds within the group. Nothing seems to pull them apart. They depend on each other completely, and their bonds are only strengthened by the adversity I put in their path. What would have resulted in madness only results in strengthening of character and resolve. To date, this is the most important part of my work. Has been totally unsuccessful. So that's what he's wanted all along. To drive us apart.
Is he still there?
I think so. Regit vitam meam. No one rules my life. Nemo rules my life.
He'll be fine. It's Cyrus I'm worried about.
She washed them, then she dried them.
saw him. The Phantom. I followed him to a rock wall. He went in. Where's Harding?
When she saw me, then she left me, lifting her petticoat over her knee. And all my life I ne'er did see a maid so fair as a Spanish lady.
Good day to you, Captain Nemo.